Is Ryan Poles comfortable with just 4 picks in this year's draft? And how can the Bears take advantage of the talent at pick number 9? What's up, guys? Swift here covering everything Chicago Bears. If you missed it, Ryan Poles has been doing a round of interviews. He joined Rich Eisen, Pat McAfee, and a bunch more shows. I'll be breaking down everything he said a bit later, but first I want to talk a little bit about pick 9 again and what I learned after listening to both Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus speak. Let's get right into it. First off, Ryan Poles seems comfortable with only 4 draft picks. This is something I hadn't really considered much and have been operating under the assumption that he's most likely going to trade down and acquire more picks. But Ryan Poles said something that caught my attention, and I thought it was very interesting. He said he's perfectly fine with only 4 draft picks, and he reminded everyone that he's drafted 21 players total over the last 2 years, and that the Bears are scheduled to have 9 picks again next year. So he's still clearly building through the draft. After bringing in 11 rookies in 2022, 10 rookies in 2023, and he has 9 picks scheduled for 2025. That means even if he only makes those 4 picks this year, he will still average about 8 or 9 rookies a season, which is the definition of building through the draft. And that's without even counting the guys he's been able to find as undrafted free agents, such as Jack Sanborn, Tyson Bagent, Josh Blackwell, and Jalen Jones. Also, with those 21 picks he's made in his first 2 years, only one was a first rounder, Darnell Wright. And he's also only been able to pick 1 top 10 pick. Poles now has the ability to add 2 more first rounders next month and potentially 2 more top 10 talents to this roster. And the idea is starting to grow on me more and more. Let's add some blue chip players to mix in here. Looking at all the talent we have already, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright, Gervon Dexter, Tyreek Stevenson, Zach Pickens, and more. And then Poles also added Montez Sweat, Keenan Allen, and Ryan Bates with draft picks from this year's class. Montez Sweat is our 2nd round pick, but the draft is setting up to where Poles could potentially add another blue chip player at pick number 9. What I took from listening to Ryan Poles is about what I expected. His words lead me to believe that he could stay right at pick number 9 and takes whoever he believes is the best player on the board, or that he's trying to raise the value and trade down. But most likely 1 or 2 of these guys should still be on the board. Out of Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, Tali Fuaga, Brock Bowers, Dallas Turner, and Jared Verse. Those guys are elite players to me, and Poles should have an option of getting his favorite one out of those guys. He should have his choice of 2 or 3 of the players from this group, and I consider them all to be blue chip caliber players. But I think if Ryan Poles trades down, he can still land a blue chipper as well. So of course he's going to talk up the players who could be on the board at pick number 9 in case he does want to move back and pick up an extra pick. It's still a unique opportunity where I think Poles could still land a blue chip player at a position of need by trading down. Those positions are offensive tackle, wide receiver, and defensive end. But if you trade down, you can throw center and defensive tackle in there as well. I think Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell, and Keon Coleman are all extremely talented wide receiver prospects and have the upside to be number 1 or number 2 options in the NFL. You can get all 3 of those guys later in the first round. There's going to be options at defensive end as well. I think Jared Verse or Liatu Latu could slide down the board a little bit, but then even after them you have Chop Robinson and Darius Robinson, who both offer a ton of upside and elite traits. And then at tackle, Troy Fatanu and Tali Fuaga are my guys, outside of the stud Joe Alt, but there are other guys like Olu Fashanu, JC Latham, and Amarius Mims that are going to slide down the board a bit as well. I love this year's center class as well. Jackson Powers Johnson and Zach Frazier stand out, but I'd love to land a dominant center if we could trade back. And then finally, even though I am a huge Gervon Dexter fan, both Jerzon Newton and Byron Murphy could be options if Poles traded back as well. I think either way, this draft is set up to fall really well for the Chicago Bears right now. If you're someone who wants to stick at number 9 and make the pick, I think the thing to root for is J.J. McCarthy going in the top 8. If J.J. McCarthy goes early, it only pushes another talented player down the board to us at 9. But going back to our options at pick 9 here, I do think it's a bit high for Laiatu Latu, Brian Thomas Jr., or Troy Fautanu. So if the Bears stay at 9, I think they could take one of the players from the top 7 I have listed on the board here. And in fact, I don't even think Brock Bowers is that realistic, so we could even narrow it down to these 6 players. I believe in all likelihood, if Ryan Poles does not trade down, one of these guys will be a Chicago Bear. And then narrowing it down even further, I'd say my top 4 guys with the highest possibility to end up being Chicago Bears if they're on the board at pick number 9 is number 1, Rome Odunze, number 2, Dallas Turner, number 3, Malik Neighbors, and number 4, Jared Verse. I love Tali Fuaga, but I do think he's less likely to be the pick. To me, I think he fits perfectly as a guy who can come in and play anywhere on the line. He's an absolute mauler, and he could even play left tackle. But considering we took Darnell Wright last year, and he profiles a lot like Darnell Wright, probably less likely we take another right tackle in the top 10. But there you have it, guys. These are my best options for players that could end up becoming Chicago Bears next month. All of the talk has been about pick number 1. I believe that one's pretty much set in stone, and Caleb Williams will be our next franchise quarterback. But then the rest of the NFL draft comes down to pick number 9. Poles legitimately has 2 options here. He can either stay put at number 9 and grab the best player available, which I believe would be one of these 6 guys, or he can trade down, pick up more draft capital, and still have the potential to add a really, really talented player in round 1. So let's take one last peek at the options that could be available if we trade down. And man, the potential here is off the charts to me. Some of my absolute favorite players in the entire draft fall in this range. So I think Ryan Poles is in a win-win situation here. Staying at pick 9 and taking a stud player, or trading down to this area and still being able to land one of my favorite players in the draft, such as Adonai Mitchell, Darius Robinson, Troy Fautanu, JPJ, or Zach Frazier, plus adding more draft capital. Either way is a win for me. It's a really fun first round of the NFL draft coming up, and I think Ryan Poles has multiple routes he can take to really improve this roster. I know a lot of people were set on the haul of draft picks we could get, but let's not forget how much a quarterback can move the needle if we got it right. I think the most likely scenario is Ryan Poles is going to take Caleb Williams at number 1 overall, and then I think he's probably going to take a defensive end at number 9, either Jared Verse or Dallas Turner. I think right now those are the 2 most likely guys to end up being Bears. But to me, if we're taking Caleb Williams, I know we need another defensive end, but let's go all out and draft offense to support our quarterback. We can sign a defensive end after the draft and take one in the first round next year, when it's a really good draft for edge rushers. This year, I'd much rather support our rookie quarterback even more. To me, I'd go either offensive line, a center, tackle, or guard, or even a wide receiver in round 1. I know we have Keenan Allen, but let's not forget he's going to be 32 years old, and he's dealt with a ton of injuries in his career. We still need another receiver, in my opinion. We also still need more help on the O-line, and we do still need another pass rusher. But other than that, this team looks ready to compete for a playoff spot right now. Watch out, guys. I couldn't be more excited about the draft. There are so many talented players in this year's first round. I just hope Poles gets it right. Let me know which of these guys would be your favorite and the one you'd be rooting for to end up in Chicago. I have a lot more videos on the way. Please remember to hit that like button for me. Stay tuned, and until next time, bear down.